School Board, Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. We're going to dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance and the reading of the recording of the roll, and we're going to get right to this. I would like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Obviously, we would all prefer to not be here, and we would all prefer to not have a reason to be here. Our hope tonight is that questions that haven't been answered get answered. People who think their voices haven't been heard have an opportunity to speak and be heard. I understand that there's both a combination of distrust at this moment because, frankly, we failed in a pretty basic element of what we do in the district. I also understand there are lots of people that are just plain old angry, and they'd like to share that and display it, which is, certainly your prerogative. Our purpose here is to advance, what we're trying to do, both to solve the problem and also to remember that come tomorrow, the good teachers, the good administrators of this district are going to be doing their job like they do every day. With your support, with your help, we're going to figure out what went wrong. We're going to do everything possible to make sure it doesn't happen again. And at some point, we're going to be a better district for the things we've learned through this process. Now, we've had a few people sign up in advance, so when it comes time for audience participation, they'll go first. We'll get the sign-up sheet, and then we'll go in, order after that. Typically, we have a 3-minute time limit for participation. It's not carved in stone, but just want people to be respectful of the other folks' time too, so everyone gets a chance. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Bill Short now, so we can begin the program.
Thank you, Mr. Bova. To our audience, thank you for showing up tonight. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, a lot of concern from your end. We'll have that opportunity to address many of those questions, which were forwarded by the Ramsey PTO. But before we get there, as superintendent of the Gateway School District, I remain and I am angered over the egregious human error that resulted in the self-inflicted crisis at Ramsey Elementary. This is not who we are as a district and not who we are as school communities. My heart hurts for every person that has been affected. To our children, the greatest resource we have, stay strong. Speak to your families with questions or ask your teacher. To our parents, I personally thank you for your patience and understanding. Many of you I've had an opportunity to speak with in person or on the phone. I share your dismay over the incident. To the staff and principal at Ramsey, your commitment and perseverance has been admirable. You have been there for our children and the parents and for one another. I can't say enough about your efforts. Thank you for being here this evening and allowing the district and the Monroeville Police to share more details and information about the incident. I would like to begin by reviewing up-to-date, relevant information related to the incident, then followed by answering questions which were provided by the PTO, and they were well thought out questions. And if I can ask for your patience while reviewing those, at the conclusion of my presentation, I will then have Chief Cole from the Monroeville Police Department, who has worked side by side with the district, not only on this situation, but as partners in our communities for the last 60, 70 years. My personal thank you to the officers, I see a couple in the back, Chief, for his presence and quick response time, which we will also answer within the next few minutes. With that said, The incident itself, March 15th, we had an individual approach the Ramsey front door area, enclosed in what we call the mousetrap vestibule area of the building, summoned the secretary. Another employee was brought forward, went to the front door. The employee asked the individual their purpose for being there. The individual then relayed information about needing to use the restroom. This employee breached the policy, the procedures we have in place, and allowed and escorted the individual to an area of the building, then returned to the front door anticipating the individual to return. After several minutes, again, the employee began to walk over, look into the hallway, waiting for the individual to return, did not see the individual. Another employee of the district entered the building. This employee then asked for assistance, asked for this other employee to go check the restroom to see if the individual was still utilizing the restroom. The employee complied. Not only did the employee check the restroom, but also classrooms in that end of the wing. No one was to be found. The individual then returned back to the other employee and relayed that information. The third egregious error was when this employee failed to report and assumed the individual left the building. Roughly 40 minutes later, we had a student approach a teacher with information that the student thought they saw shoes underneath a stall that they were unfamiliar with and had concerns. I applaud that individual child who came forward and alerted the teacher. Immediately, a nurse whose restroom is adjacent to her office came upon the scene, ensured that no one was leaving that restroom while the young student and employee summoned the principal. The principal was in a meeting. Quickly adjourned that meeting immediately, approached the restroom, and demanded whoever was in to leave, come out. The principal acted swiftly along with the two staff members. The principal detained the individual immediately. The person was very compliant. The principal then, in the back corridor, not the front entryway, the rear corridor, moved the individual, who was very compliant, into a locked conference room in the office, put the office on lockdown, closed the door, and basically sat on the individual, while also a staff member was present outside of the room and in the outer office area. 911 was called. Monroeville Police responded quickly. In my letter, it indicated within 15 minutes. We believe, after speaking with one of the officers, it was less than 5. Shows the dedication and response time of our departments. We've also identified another female student who was in the restroom. We are actively working with the Monroeville Police to follow up on this investigation. Chief Cole will have more information soon. The principal and staff did a tremendous job of detaining this individual, and understand when they approached the restroom, they did not know if this was a student, an employee, maintenance worker, because at that time there was no threat, no immediate information that an individual was in the building. And when I say reacted quickly, efficiently, thwarted anything else from happening. That has been lost in a lot of our conversations, as well as the students and that young lady who stepped up and knew what to do. At this time, I would like to have our technology director place on the screen Testing 1, 2, good. Once again, thank you to the Ramsey PTO. I know I see a few of them present here in the audience. They provided a list of questions that I wanted to review with everyone. Very thorough questions, questions that need to be answered. We have those for you at this time. So the first question, how long has the Ramsey red box been broken or out of use? The red box, for those people in the audience who may not understand or know what that is, it is a box in the vestibule that's used for visitors to approach the building prior to opening or having access to the building, where they will insert their license, and we, either our school police and or employee at the door, is able to find out a background check on the individual prior to allowing them inside. The red box system and visitor entry system. Red box has always been operational. We checked with our technology director, and he has confirmed that yes, it has been operational. Question number 2, are all schools consistent in their usage of the red box system and visitor entry? Yes. Visitors scan licenses to determine background checks. System captures and retains images and photos within the system that the school police and or the employees are used or utilized to check. Question number 3, there are many entry-exit doors at Ramsey. What systems are in place to prevent anyone, including a student, from opening a door and allowing an intruder in, or a student from exiting? Per code, all doors, existing doors within public schools, must be accessible to exit. So there is always that opportunity for an individual to open up the door. There are alarms on certain doors that are accessed more frequently than others. If an individual does leave, of course, we would be notified either through the teacher or through our school security officer. What is the current lockdown protocol? District has utilized ALICE, alert, lockdown, inform, counter, evacuate. Again, it is scenario-based. Number 5, where is it published for review by parents, and if lockdown should have been called based on protocol? Why wasn't a lockdown called for Ramsey? Very good question. Protocols within schools do not make public emergency operations plans. We do not make those public for a reason. You do not want to provide that information to the general public, who may be an individual who would like to place or become an intruder within the school. You would never want to disclose information on reunification, a blueprint that we have, to the threat. The imminent threat for that situation, the person was detained. The imminent threat. The individual was compliant, it was not combative, and was moved to a controlled, locked conference room while staff members were positioned outside of the perimeter of the locked area. The principal was in the locked conference room detaining the individual until Monroeville police arrived. Next question. Why didn't the police, Monroeville police, interview the school visitors that signed in on 3/15/22? Monroeville police will respond if appropriate due to the ongoing investigation, and Chief Cole will have some further information in a few minutes. If visitors or others have been interviewed, when will that information be provided? Again, the Monroeville police are still moving through their investigation phase. Number 8. When were the police called, and what was the response time? 3:28 p.m. 911 was called. Response time, and I had put up 10 to 15 minutes. Again, that was clarified today, of less than 5. What message was conveyed to the police? Staff member called 911 and informed the dispatcher of the current situation, which included the perpetrator as being detained in a locked office. If there was a significant lag in time between discovery of an individual in the bathroom versus police being called, why? No significant lag time. From the moment the individual was detained and brought to the office, 911 was called. Was a full school sweep conducted by the police? Again, this is a Monroeville police investigation. Officer Cole will have some, or Chief Cole will have some more information on this in a few minutes. Was a review of the security cameras conducted? Was this individual in other areas of the school other than the bathroom for 40 minutes? Yes, a review of the cameras was done. Security footage was reviewed and turned over to the Monroeville police immediately. What steps are the administration school board taking to conduct a post-crisis analysis separate from the police, and will this be made public? Will this analysis be conducted by a third party? The answer to that question is yes. Gateway School District Administration and Gateway School Police will conduct an internal post-crisis analysis, and the Pennsylvania State Police have agreed to join us and conduct an outside review. How is a third party or independent agency being engaged, and through what type of contract, vehicle, mutual understanding agreement? This will be coordinated through the Pennsylvania State Police Vulnerability Assessment Team. What role does the County Emergency Management, Pennsylvania Management Agency, Department of Education, PA State Police, other local, state, federal agency have in the current investigation, update of our EOP and other policies, Again, the Pennsylvania State Police will complete an assessment post along with our internal investigation and provide recommendations to the school board and through my office. Number 16. The communications that were sent on 3/15 and 3/16 provide conflicting information, were never updated or clarified. Will information be provided to reconcile the conflicting information? The answer to that is yes. The second communication from the superintendent, my office, provided information that was not immediately available due to the ongoing investigation. So when the principal responded first, he provided parents with an immediate cursory review of what he could do pending the investigation. It was then the following day that I consulted with Chief Cole about the contents of my letter to inform parents without compromising the investigation, which is ongoing. 17, our teachers advised to communicate to their students the following day, and by whom? If we could scroll up to the answer. The faculty met with the principal and central administration before the beginning of the school day and at the conclusion of the school day. Counseling staff was made available to assist both teachers and students. And I do want to thank the counselor at Ramsey, Kylie Martin, who was very active in this entire process. We also have to reach out to the high school counseling staff who offered their services and were available on site, including three social workers who offered their support as well. Who is directing, approving communications for incidents like this in the district? Superintendent, I am responsible for district-wide communications. The principal is responsible for school-level communications, working with central administration during critical incidents. 19. Gateway does no longer employ a PR employee. Does Gateway contract out PR services? No, we do not do that. Where's the guidance being obtained from so that parents can review and ask questions? If they were supportive, it would be helpful for them to be consistent. School-level questions are to be directed to the principal. If the principal provides you with an unsatisfactory response, then you go up the chain of command. You would go to the assistant superintendent and/or superintendent's office, and ultimately the board. What are the Gateway Alice drill requirements? Are they aligned by school? Alice drills are differentiated based on age, grade level, and buildings. Can we scroll up, please? Ramsey's last Alice drill was last school year, October 13th, Cohort A, October 15th, Cohort B. Mossad Middle School had 2 this year. You see the dates. Can we scroll down, please? On September 1st of 2021, Ramsey engaged in an Alice drill. This spring, 2022, a drill will be coordinated by building level principals. We do 2 a year. Who within Gateway administration is responsible for ensuring safety training? Alice drills are completed, required in a timely manner, and tracking. Central administration, principal, and school police. What is the onboarding process for new teachers, staff, principals in the schools regards to safety training, safety protocols? When is to be conducted? What is to be conducted, and who's responsible at the admin level? Our Gateway School District has an induction program. This is for new staff who is in service by a trainer, train-to-trainer model, human resources, and building level principals. It is upon hire, and it is ongoing throughout the year. Central office personnel oversee this and depending upon the appropriate position.
Are safety guidelines and training consistent amongst all school buildings? All schools are required to follow the same district policies and procedures. 26, the EOP indicates that the school principal is the incident commander during an incident. Is this accurate? Yes, until relieved by the Monroeville Police. And when I say relieved, they're working hand in hand. But again, when the Monroeville Police enter that building, they have the jurisdiction at that point. Does the Ramsey principal maintain responsibility of developing their own facility operational procedures and plans? District develop a standard plan, but customized by buildings. Plans are reviewed by our Gateway School Police. What additional consequences may the school district impose on staff that did not follow procedure? How will this be handled in the future? Again, it's a personnel issue. Mutual agreements, cooperative understandings with other agencies. The district does have a memorandum of understanding with the Monroeville Police. It was updated in August of 2021. Are the security cameras inside, outside of Ramsey all in active use? And are they monitored in real time, especially when children may be outside during school hours or in a public park at Ramsey? Yes, cameras are all active and in use. School police and staff have access to view in real time. Why were the SRO moved out of the elementary schools, and why were parents not notified of the change? Gateway School Police are utilized throughout the district depending upon district incident-related needs. Again, the district is constantly looking for employees at all levels, including school police. We would love to have 15 on staff. Currently, we have 9, and again, some of these are part-time. When an SRO is not stationed at the front entry, breaks, lunches, who will provide the redundancy of safety checks? Again, the building level principal and secretary will notify an available SRO. And I believe that's the last question. I want to thank the PTO for those questions. We will make those public on our website, all of those. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Chief Cool to provide us with some information related to the ongoing investigation.
Can you hear me? I think I got it now. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Short. I want to take a moment to thank the school board as well as the superintendent for the opportunity to address everybody here today. And I also want to point out that both my mayor and deputy mayor, Mayor Dr. Grace Hawk and Deputy Mayor Eric Poacher in the audience too, as well as a couple of my officers in the back. Thanks for coming, guys. My response is going to be basically just from our initial response to this call. I don't have any comment or anything about what occurred prior to the call. All I can say is that when the school district did notify the police department, we responded in an appropriate and timely manner. We did have information from a caller, obviously that's recorded and we can listen to it, explaining the particulars, and we knew this was an incident that had been isolated and suspect that, we'll call it at this point, had been detained. So the officers arrived in that 5 to 10 minute category, as Superintendent Short said. They immediately began an investigation, including a sweep of the area to make sure nobody else was there as they got more information, because this is all information based. So that's how that began. As that proceeded onward, additional resources were brought, including a supervisor, which now meant there were 3 officers there, and a detective was called into it, not necessarily immediately at the scene, but he was going to be on a standby to be able to do interviews, as we knew we were going to be making an arrest on the individual. So the individual was arrested. He was removed from the facility. He was brought to the Monroeville Police Station. He was interviewed. Items on his person, i.e. his cell phone, were seized appropriately. Those, based on the interviews and based on the information that we could get from the parties involved, we had crimes that could be charged. Part of our responsibility in charging is to also notify the district attorney's office. Monroeville Police Department in the eastern suburbs are in what they call a warrant office schedule, which means we have to get approval for certain crimes to even be charged by us before they'll even take them to night court. A night court being the fact that we were after the daylight hours. So that was done. The interviews were pretty extensive. Was determined that we had criminal charges that could be filed. They were filed that night. That individual was taken to the Allegheny County Jail and locked up in that facility and arraigned sometime within the next 24 hours, where he was put in the facility with no bond, and he is currently still incarcerated in the Allegheny County Jail prior to his preliminary hearing, which should be coming up next Monday. They sometimes get postponed. So there's evaluations that are ongoing with him. As for the investigation continued with additional interviews, back to the scene the next day, getting evidence from the Gateway School District, which is very cooperative, no issues at all, which we didn't expect anyway, and we're continuing on that path. At this point, I can't really comment because it is under investigation. We stand by the original charges that were filed, and I can list them for you here in a minute. But the reality is that it is possible, let's put it that way, that there will be additional charges added on as this investigation continues. There are search warrants that have already been done. There are probably going to be search warrants done in the future. I can assure you that we'll take this to the fullest extent that we can take it to on a prosecution end of it. Obviously, keeping the suspects' rights in mind too, as we must do. My belief, based on what I know of this case now, and it's based on what I know now, this could change tomorrow as the investigation continues. So please remember, this is what we know as I'm speaking to you now. The initial response of the police, of the school district after calling us was quite appropriate. It gave us the appropriate information that we needed to respond with the appropriate resources. We can't just be, as some of the individuals, I guess, that have been documented or saying on Facebook and all that other stuff that I don't read, saying that, we just can't send the whole police department to every call we go to. That's just not practical. We have to, take the information that we have and then address that as it goes. If it escalates, we add more resources to it. If it doesn't escalate, we downsize the resources. This was a very unusual occurrence, no doubt about it. I've been a police officer for 37 years, and I haven't, we've had some other unique school incidents going back 15, 20 years, but nothing like this that I've seen in my career. So we wanted to make sure also that the initial stuff that we do, initial investigative stuff that we do, is legal and appropriate and timely. And those items, that's all been happening. So that we get the best evidence that we possibly can get to successfully prosecute this individual, which is our intent. But again, from the time that we got the call and arrived on a scene, I believe, and understanding some of the policies, obviously understanding all of them, it was done appropriately by the school district. That's pretty much all I can say. I can answer some specific questions. I'll certainly tell you the charges that were filed initially, and I do anticipate, and this is going to change. In fact, I'm pretty confident there'll be additional charges, but the initial charges that we have in place here are, and you can get this on a criminal complaint that's been certainly put in the news media, possessing instruments of a crime, I'll talk about that in a second, possessions of a weapon on school property, invasion of privacy. As they sit now, those charges are all misdemeanors, with the highest one being a misdemeanor 1. I do anticipate that's going to change based on what we know here currently and based on what we think we're going to know in the future. Of course, we could never be 100% sure of that. So the instruments of a crime, he had a box cutter, knife type device on him. That box cutter was, according to his statements, that he used for work. He just had it in his pocket. Nobody can know about that, but certainly that's considered a weapon as far as we're concerned, and that's why those charges were filed. I anticipate, as I said, additional charges or charges being amended in some form or another, either at the preliminary hearing or even before that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We're going to now turn to the questions or comments from residents. The first group that called to speak was the Ramsey PTO. I don't know if you have a representative or...
We're good? Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I am part of the Ramsey PTO. I have an 8th grader in the district, so I was in the PTO organization then, and I currently have a 1st grader. Okay. So just from the questions that we have provided, I just want to say thank you for taking the time. We were hopeful that we would get a lot of those answers, so I'm very grateful that you took the time to go through that. But I just wanted to, I guess, provide some clarification or possible information in regards to the red box and the safety security process. For the past 2 years, so when my youngest started kindergarten, was in cohorts, we have not utilized the red box at our school for at least the past 2 years. It was never a safety process or protocol that was utilized by the personnel at the front desk. And was standard practice for that individual. So I just wanted to call to your attention that that was basically being violated on a daily basis. I, as a parent, take responsibility for not bringing that up the chain, and I feel guilty for not doing so because I know the process. It is followed religiously in Moss-Side Middle School for my oldest, and I was on the board there as well. So I take responsibility as a parent, and I think we all do, that we need to do better. And if we see something, we need to say something going forward. But I think you need to be aware that that has been the case for the past 2 years at least.
Yeah, and I do appreciate what you're providing with us. Our technology department does run reports, usage reports that indicates it is being utilized. Now, I'll cross-reference with him as well, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. By the way, I'd just like to add that, one of the things we are learning as we proceed through this, or relearning, is that you guys are wonderful resources, but we in leadership might not have done a good enough job of facilitating the flow of information. So it's kind of you to say you feel guilty about not bringing that to our attention, but there's that see something, say something model that we use for the kids. It's not a bad model for us too. We always assume that someone else has seen the thing that we see. So Dr. Short has already begun kind of discussions with Grant Sample from the Teachers Union about getting together administrators, teachers, and parents in pod kind of arrangements to share information and ideas in a way that's not in any way threatening or restrictive. So productive is what we're aiming for. So nothing good about this situation, but in the aftermath, if we can learn something that makes the district better going forward, we've made the best of this bad situation. We're going to go next to Thomas Dorchak.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I ask that the school board and all the parents bear with me, please. There's a few things that I do want to state Number one, don't believe that it goes unnoticed that there are few parents here tonight. Don't believe that it goes unnoticed that we know that a meeting was called with 2 days in advance for parents who didn't have a chance to be here tonight. So I'm going to speak for all of them. One of my main concerns is that on the 16th, whenever a letter was sent out by you, Superintendent Short, stating that you would do better in the future, on the 17th of March, I had come to the school at 2 p.m. to pick up my son who was sick. Less than 24 hours after you said that you would do better, I entered the mousetrap. An individual standing there, I've never met before, doesn't know me, and I don't know her, opened the door to me before asking me and showing me how to use the ID machine. She, less than 24 hours after being told that we would do better, opened the door for a possible intruder, she didn't know who I was, to walk into the school. So I'd like to know, I hope everyone's taking notes because I have questions. I'd like to know, number one, why that happened 24 hours after we were told that things would be better. I'd also like to address some inconsistencies that you had told us. This is mostly directed at you, Mr. Short. And I'd like you to see my face, because we had talked the other day on the phone. So I want you to know who's talking to you. It's interesting how convenient it was that you had left out a cell phone was found by the student peeking under the stall, which had alerted her. It's interesting how you neglected to mention the box cutter that was on the individual. So don't believe it goes unnoticed. If you want to hide things, but don't tell us about them, then lie to us. The next thing I want to mention is that you mentioned the timeline. In your letter, you mentioned that the individual entered the school at approximately 2:20, was gone for 40 minutes, and detained. Takes us to 3 o'clock. 911 wasn't called until 3:28. I would like for you also to account for that missing time, the half hour, and why nobody was called. And I would also like to say, since I don't have a whole lot of time here, how dare you laud the principal as the hero? There are young kids, there are young children who were violated. It's a good thing that somebody in that school knew how to handle this. So I hope that we focus less on what of a hero our principal is, and more on the victims and how they were heroes. I hope that one day...
I totally agree with you.
I'm sorry?
I said I totally agree with you.
I don't think you do, because the principal was lauded to be such a genuine person to you. I hope that one day you don't have to stand across from the parents of the young girls who were violated. I hope that you don't have to look into their eyes and have to explain to them how your school, your principal, failed them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 3, we have Michelle Simon, I think. Yes.
Hi, my name's Michelle Simon, and my daughter, who is here with me tonight, is a 3rd grader at Ramsey Elementary School. The day that the incident happened, first of all, it took several hours for us to get an email that was misleading in my eyes. We had no idea of the incident that happened at the school. My daughter comes home crying that something bad had happened at school, and she is now scared to go to school. And I have to sit here and send my daughter every day to school wondering, is she going to be safe in our school? My questions that I have for you guys are, why is it for the red box that certain individuals have to use the red box and certain individuals don't have to use the red box. I go to the school every 3 months for an IEP for my child. I have to use the red box no matter what. A couple of my neighbors have to use the red box no matter what, who also feel like the school racially profiles them because they have to stand in the corridor for several minutes while they wait for their child to come out instead of being led to the office. That's my first concern. My second concern is, how do we know that you guys are going to do a better job in the future when the individual, which we all know who the individual is that you guys are trying to hide, has been with the school for years, knows the procedures and protocols, but still let the individual in the school, which in my eyes probably did not have to use the red box. My third concern is, why was the person put on administrative leave and not let go of right away? I feel like you guys are taking this as a joke. Several other parents where I live feel like you're taking it as a joke. Just like when the kids get picked on in school and all this other stuff from older kids or whatever, you guys take everything as a joke. When my daughter started in kindergarten, I loved Gateway School District. Now I feel like everything, we keep going through principals, we keep going through all these people, and every time something happens, it took you guys 24 hours to even let it be known on the news. It took us, for you to send us an email being very descriptive of what happened. He could have did a better job of what he said. We should have known that day exactly what happened, not 24 hours later. I do thank the Monroeville Police Department for doing their job, but in my eyes, the school could have did way better. And as a parent of a third grader who does not sleep at night now, who does have a therapist through the school district, but is still scared to go to school, we got to do better for our children. Or like the previous person said, how do we know something worse won't happen? I asked my daughter that day, what would she have done? Because she was on her way to the bathroom. She said she would have kicked open the door to confront the individual. I had to tell her that's not what you do. You guys need to do a training or something, because my daughter also came home and told me they're being paired up with another student to go to the bathroom. What is her and another student going to be able to do against a person that has a box cutter? Nothing. And that's all I have.
Hold on, yeah. Ma'am, I think we'll attempt to address one or two of these, like the what appears to be random use of the red box, which we're going to have to obviously explore how it's used and when. The idea that one of us or all of us takes this as a joke, it just couldn't be more wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sure there's no response that we're doing that's perfect or appropriate, but for a week I've been sick that a number of bad decisions led to this child or these children being put in this position. I can't let that part go. No one is underplaying this. Could we have gotten information out differently or better? I believe so. We're going to review those processes quickly, find out what works best in the, God forbid, eventuality that something like this happens again. But nobody takes this lightly. Nobody thinks this is a joke. I'm allowed to, and I'm allowed, right, and I'm allowed to respond. So I'm just letting you know that I can speak for myself, and that's simply not true.
Can I respond?
Oh, anyone, yes, sir.
I can figure out how to use this. Hello? That's why you got a PhD, Let me respond. I mean, some of this is also, man, people, and please don't take this, your concerns are 100% correct, okay? But we're being taught that these kind of events, everything happens quickly. It's a TV thing, and especially if you watch any of these crime shows, anybody that's in law enforcement will tell you, and that it just does not do that. Like right now, I'm telling you, what I know now could change tomorrow. This investigation. It's not stopped, it's ongoing. And part of this also is, that's the issues that we give to the superintendent for his information. Because once we make the arrest, he's out of the game, as is the school board. I don't want to call it a game, but I mean, they're not investigating it. We've got to keep that close to the vest. That's how we solve these crimes. That's law enforcement. That's detective work. That's what you do. And part of that is we do want to release the information. We've been more transparent in our careers here. Yeah, it said 37 years since we've ever been. Okay, and you as parents absolutely have the right to have this information, but the information we don't want to give you is wrong, because it could change again, and I really stand by that. This is as we know it at this moment. I'm pretty sure it's going to change. You know, things are going to come out in this investigation that will at least give us hopefully felony arrests on this individual, but I don't know that factually right now. I can't tell you that. And I certainly sympathize with the administration on both my end of it as well as the school district, to trying to give you the best, most accurate information as quickly and timely as possible. But that's a difficult thing to do because, as I said, it changes. The reason I brought the thing up about the box cutter is because if you read the criminal complaint that's public information, it says knife, sharp instrument, that type of event. Well, that type of just it's generalized language there. Whereas the box cutter is more to tell you what this was about. That's what he had on his person. It wasn't like he was carrying a 10-inch knife. And that's why I wanted to get that out. But again, that's not what we say in our criminal complaint. That is public information. Criminal complaints, the charges we file to magistrate or through the court system. So I hope that answers your question as to some of the reasons why things aren't exactly saying everything to you at the beginning, because a lot of times we don't know that. We know it after the fact. We got some basic core things is all we're able to tell you. And that's what I think is the important thing, that both law enforcement, the municipal government, as well as the school board, and gets that out to the public. Sure, it's okay.
But, how can I put it politely, because the news is here? Child pornography, is that one of the charges that are being looked at? Because
You should be a news reporter. No, ma'am, I can't comment on anything. I can't comment on anything, but I can tell you that there's other avenues that we're following, and that's all I
so
can really
how
tell
do we
you.
know this individual is not going to get out? Because, I mean, there's several things being told that he has a mental illness, so people are scared he's going to get out because of that reason. But also, there's misdemeanor charges at this point.
I can't give you, I'm not the court system. The court system makes that decision.
Ma'am, just real quick, I just pulled up the docket, his docket before I came, and he was denied bail originally, and then there was a bail modification hearing. You can ask again for the judge, and the judge denied it again and asked for him to get a consultation or an evaluation, a mental health evaluation. So depending on the outcome of that mental health evaluation, a judge will then decide whether or not that individual they can set parameters for bail. So if the mental health evaluation comes back with certain items in it, the judge might deny him re-entering society until they actually go through with the hearing or deal with a plea. But as of right now, the courts have ordered that he has to be evaluated.
So it could be
psychologically.
several weeks before we know anything.
They usually do them with the pandemic. The last one that I dealt with, and again, this is just my personal knowledge with my own clients, it was issued within a week. But I can't tell you how quickly the mental health evaluators are going down there, because I know they're short on staff and things like that with the pandemic. Usually it used to happen faster than that. So I don't know
And
how
we can
long
find
that'll
all
take.
this information ourselves on the website?
This is on, it's called the, well, you can look up under docket sheets. It's the website, I don't,
Allegheny County?
no, it's the Unified Judicial System of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
The UJS system?
Yeah, the UJS system, correct.
Alright,
And you
thank
can look
you.
up, and you can look up by name or by county, however you want. We can issue a letter. Do you want me? So, I was just asked by Mrs. Strucci if we could issue a letter requesting that this individual not be on school property. And of course, our law firm, we could do that and issue if the board so desires, which I would assume to be so. So I can get that out there. But right now, he's in the county jail, so I wouldn't serve him with it until sometime at a later date. Because again, he's in jail, so, but I wouldn't be able to serve anybody with that until he got out. There's an opportunity for people to stand up to speak if you weren't aware that.
Yes, ma'am. There's 4 more speakers. You can go after them. Okay. Next, we have Rick at Roval or?
Probably Atwood.
Oh, it could be Atwood.
My gateway handwriting. Bonnie, don't start the timer yet, because most of what I'm going to say in the beginning is actually supportive of the group. So, Chief Cole, I'm glad you were invited to the party this time. I know last time where it was a global thing district-wide, you were not invited, and that was the inception of the school police force. So I'm glad you got invited this time. Secondly, I'm going to say a lot of things that you guys cannot say in answer to these questions because of your political position that you're in. Allegheny County is one of the most liberal counties in the state. This person very well may get out in 2-3 weeks, and that's only because the judges are allowed to, because of their caseload and the voters' registrations, allowed to allow a lot of things to happen because the jail is jam-packed. That's not a fault of the police department, which, by the way, Monroeville Police Department is one of the best that you're going to find around here, and that's not a fault of the school board. That's just literally the dynamics of Allegheny County. It's just jam-packed, and so are the jails. I heard a couple people say that they were mad that 911 wasn't called immediately and that the police took, X number of minutes to respond. I can tell you, as someone in public service for over 20 years, if there's not an immediate life hazard, the police are not going to put their lives in danger racing across town, zipping through red lights, weaving in and out of traffic. From what I heard Chief Cole say, and I mean, I'm not his best buddy. I've never been to his house for dinner. I'm not defending him. I'm just telling you that I know how the police department works through 20 years of doing stuff. If there's not an immediate life hazard, they're not going to put their lives and the other motorists in public in hazard, and the message they received was the person was detained and in a locked room. So the officers are not going to, as much as we want them to because we think it's a dire emergency, the message they received was it's not. I'm saying the message that they received was...
Excuse me. Just so we can...
Yeah,
get
the message
everyone's
they
opinion,
received
ma'am.
was is the
Ma'am, you have
person
an
was in a locked
opportunity to
room.
speak.
So I'm just defending that. Secondly, right. And
That's
so
exactly
secondly,
right.
the reason
That's
that I'm
exactly
here is
right.
I don't recognize a
Right.
whole bunch of faces, but there are, I believe, 4 of you here when the school police department was formed that I can recognize. You 4 promised us that there would be a school police officer in every building at all times. You promised us. It was actually emphatic. Hands were slapping on the table. Where was the school police officer in this building? Every time I come up and talk, I just get blank faces. Where was the school police officer for this building?
Yeah, this is your department, but
Mr. Atwood, it's no surprise that law enforcement, there's a shortage of law enforcement officers in the country, not only at Gateway School, throughout all the schools in the area, as well as the municipal police officers. Our goal from the start has always been to have 13 to 15 officers. We are actively recruiting officers. We got a resume today. We do not have enough officers. I remember when the school police force was formed, we had a lot of backlash from people in the community, and you brought that up as soon as you came up to the podium. And now I'm very glad that the community has embraced our school police force, and I'm very upset that we don't have enough. So my plea would be, if anybody wants to help us to fill that gap, we would love to have you. But we have been trying to make the best decisions that we can with the staff that we have. Now that means when we have incidents at Mossad Middle School and we feel that we need to divert some officers to an area where we're having issues, that we do that. Now, none of us have a crystal ball, right? We try to make the best decisions with the faculty that we have and with the needs that we have. Now, in hindsight, would I want to consider maybe alternatives again to police officer? Absolutely. Because when you have incidents and you reevaluate, would it have made a difference if we would have had another person with eyes there, even if it wasn't an armed officer, an SRO? Yes. Is that why we're having these meetings and that why we're evaluating? Yes. But do we want to have an officer in every building? Yes, we do. That hasn't changed. That is still the goal.
I'm actually glad you answered, Mary Beth, because in our meetings years ago, and I brought up, what if there is a staffing shortage? What if there is not police officers in the school police force? Your reply, and I can probably go back through and find the video and email it to you. Your reply was, I will contact Chief Cole and we will pay the overtime for a Monroeville cop to be there. That was the whole deal. That was the sales pitch that the board had sold the district shareholders on. So if you're at a state, and I don't want to know your numbers because that alludes to where there may be an issue. So I don't want to know your number of police officers. I'm just saying, why don't we go back to the original promise that was made years ago when this pitch was sold? And if you are short officers and you have a building without an officer, call Chief Cole, offer
We have
the
done that.
overtime. I can assure you, all of these people here will pay the Monroeville police officers overtime to ensure the safety of their children.
So, Mr. Atwood, one error that you make is assuming that because you're not aware of conversations that they do not occur. So Chief Cole and I and our district have had discussions about bringing back an SRO, haven't we, Chief Cole? I'm not going to put you on the spot. The
Preliminary
problem
discussions, correct?
was Chief Cole needs to hire more officers. So we have had those discussions. The bad feelings that you brought up about when we first started the school police force are bygones. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor, we have excellent working relationships with each other. Chief Cole, he wouldn't be here if we didn't.
Mary Beth, I feel like you put words in my mouth and I don't want to argue with you. I know I'm about to get my time limit up. I said nothing disparaging. I simply said, if you have a shortage in school police officers, the Monroeville Mall hires these guys for overtime. Special events at special buildings hire the Monroeville Police for overtime. I get it. Chief Cole is understaffed as well. Every single working person in the world would take overtime. If you call Chief Cole and say, hey, I have a scheduling conflict for next Wednesday, could you offer one of your guys overtime? I know the taxpayers would be okay with reaching in the right pocket to pay the left pocket and sending an officer to a particular building if that's required. That's all I don't want to get into a banter with you. I have too much
Okay, so
respect for
the last
group.
thing I will say then is, I agree with you, Mr. Atwood. We need to do better to make sure we have full coverage in our buildings. We have discussed intergovernmental meetings with the municipality, and we have discussed alternate sources of bodies in the building to give us full coverage. And with that, I will sit down and
As
thank
will
you,
I. Thank
sir,
you.
for your comments.
The Monroeville Police are conducting the investigation. They have access to the footage. Again, the Monroeville Police are conducting their investigation. I am answering the question, sir.
All right, we're going to move on to the next speaker, Mr. John Steinkoff. So I don't have an answer, sir.
Well, that's why I asked Mr. Rossi too. He was there.
Again. Mr. Rossi?
Could you come up to the mic so everyone?
John, shut up.
How is the timeline going to change this?
The individual entered the building at 2:19. What Dr. Short's letter was indicating that was the gentleman was in the bathroom for 40 minutes, not that he was in the building for 40 minutes. I realize that we're talking about semantics here.
So what time did you find him?
3:25.
So there was an individual. So this wasn't me aware.
I understand. That's why I'm trying to clarify for you. You're right. I'm sorry. There's a lot of people
Listen, these
asking
people
questions
deserve
right now.
to have an answer to this. I'm sorry, I don't agree.
What I can assure you of is that the moment that we found out, within 2 minutes, the office went into lockdown, the individual was detained, and concurrently the police were called. And that's from the guy who held the man down in the building to make sure that your kids were safe. No one's lying.
All right, let me interrupt. Mr. Rossi, first of all, clearly there seems to be some confusion about the precise timeline. So let's do this. Why don't you have a seat? We're going to have to reconcile these numbers because I've been given the same.
Are you not
Can
calling me now? You've already stated my name to be called up. Is that being taken
No,
back now?
just, can you give me 1 second to finish the sentence? or- No, let's go.
Okay.
Mr. John Steinkoff.
John Steinkoff, yes. All right. Situational risk assessment is comprised of 3 elements: capability, opportunity, and intent. Was this individual capable of inflicting harm? Yes. Did he have the opportunity to inflict harm? Yes. Did he have the intent? The victims in that building will tell you yes. Once Mr. Rossi identified that this unknown, unauthorized individual was in his building, Alice protocol and a lockdown should have been in place, and our children should have been removed from danger, not this individual removed to the back of the building, as you're stating. Alice should have been utilized. I'd like to make it clear, as I'm sure some of you have seen my post, I have no issues with Monroeville Police Department. As a former law enforcement officer and whose father is a law enforcement officer for 20 years in North Huntington, I understand the hardships of being a law enforcement officer in these situations. My issue is with the system that was in place that allowed this to happen and the culture of complacency. The school board president that admitted on news that he removed security from our school, the superintendent who continues to mislead us, the principal who failed to lock down our school, the staff member who allowed this person in the first place. That is my fight. As a community, that needs to be our fight. The Monroeville police responded quickly, swiftly, and prevented this from being a further tragedy. And I believe downplaying the weapon as being a switchblade or a box cutter and not a larger one is a disservice to the victims of 9/11, because that's all it took. And I'm not saying that to you personally. I'm saying as a whole, we can't talk about how this could have been worse, because child pornography is not a good consolation prize. And if you're defending that, I can't stand with you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everyone's support, and I hope we continue to find answers.
Thank you. Brian Matarazzo.
So I too would like to thank Chief for being here and for the way that you handled this situation. You know, I don't have a child at Ramsey Elementary, but I have 2 children in Gateway. I thought this place would be jam-packed tonight. The gentleman that stood up before, I agree, this was in a way, I think, planned with short notice for a reason. But shame on every Ramsey parent not being here tonight. That, to me, is an absolute disgrace. Because as a school, we send our children for 7, 8 hours a day without being able to protect them. And we put that responsibility in the school. And I talk to my kids all the time about active shooter and everything, because in my profession, I'm involved with that. I think the chief was very careful in the words that he chose by saying that the school handled it according to procedure, because I think the chief would probably have handled the situation differently. Now, granted, he's in law enforcement, and he's trained, and his officers are trained to do so. But we also have a sitting board member who's a retired state trooper, and Mary Beth's talking about school security police officers. Doesn't make sense to me. I just listened to a principal stand up here and literally said, I was the guy that was protecting your children. I've never in my life thought that I'd hear something so arrogant. Sir, I don't know you, but you had your office on lockdown and not the children. Obviously, you thought there was a threat. Okay? Dr. Short, you talked about you're not, I don't know the exact words with the questions about, doing safety drills and Alice and stuff. Yes, there is for active shooter, different scenarios based on age group, but it is federal law that a school is supposed to do one fire drill a month and a safety drill every single year in lieu of a fire drill. Chief, you said these things happen very quickly, and that is true. And when we do our safety drills where I'm at, we get that through to the employees. You never know how you'll react, but practice makes perfect. And the reason that a child hasn't died in a fire in 60 plus years is because we do it every month. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Gateway's doing lockdown drills as they should. Speaking with my son, I don't believe that to be true. And I apologize if I go over my limit, but I'm not going to have 30 seconds held up when it has to do with our children. I see a lot of people getting very irritated up there today and very defensive, and you don't have the right to be that. You need to sit there and you need to listen to the parents and not be defensive and not, try to mince words and you need to answer these parents' questions, because that situation could have got so bad, and it was bad. A child was violated. That to me is the epitome of evil. But there were 400 other kids whose lives were at risk, and he did not lock down that school. I'm done.
Mr. Lapsovich, George Lapsovich.
Good evening, board. I was watching TV one evening last week, and I seen my niece on TV, and I was saying, what the heck is she on TV for, WIC? Then I realized there was something going on in Ramsey. Then they were speaking about the secretary that let this gentleman in the building unescorted. I was appalled because I was a prior board member up here. Me and some of my board members made policies making our schools as safe as they possibly can be, but we didn't make it for some lady that was a secretary that was an airhead. She should have been fired right on the spot. Instead of giving her some time off, she deserved to be fired on the spot. This board answered a lot of my questions for me tonight. Dr. Short did very good. I got a question. There's some retired constables out there in Monroeville districts and retired security guards. We're paying $30, $35 an hour. I think even if we had a babysitter at the doors, they would be willing to come for $30, $35 an hour to make sure that our children were safe. And also, I just got one question to Chief Cole. This gentleman that was the intruder at the building, did he have any other priors?
No,
He didn't?
he did not.
Okay, thank you.
No one else has signed up, so who would like to speak? I saw this hand go up first, right here. And just state your name, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Tamara Sanders Woods. I have two children that graduated from Gateway and currently have an 8th grade student. And first, I want to acknowledge this parent right here, because for one, Gateway has a relationship problem. This mother just told you that her daughter is not sleeping, not coming to school, and not no person up there acknowledged that or took her to the side and said, "Can I get your name? I'm sorry that that happened to your daughter. I'm sorry that you're traumatized. There are student assistance programs available to you, and we would like to get that information to you immediately." Instead, you played and defended, you were defensive about her words. We know that she did not mean that you took it as a joke. What she meant was, and she wasn't able to communicate herself effectively because she is so bothered by what happened to her daughter. What she meant was, she does not feel that you are demonstrating this seriously enough by how you are responding and how you don't really communicate to us effectively and appropriately and honestly of what happened. So ma'am, there is student assistance programs available in the school. They should be contacting you immediately. Secondly, you have a communication problem, right? We don't know what's going on in the schools. We don't. And so when you get an email like that of something happening in your child's school, you want to talk to your child. There's robocall systems. There's talking points that could be utilized specifically for that school. You didn't have to tell all of Gateway, but at the very least, you should have told the parents of that school so they could have had that uncomfortable conversation with their children that very night. I work in a school and I have never seen in a 40-minute time where only one student used the bathroom. So I do not believe that was the only victim there. I don't. And so I'm also gonna just give you some points to consider, right? Because the third thing, Gateway has an arrogance problem, a failure to acknowledge the reality of where we are as a district right now. Here's the arrogance, right? Was that used as an opportunity to counsel those students that may have been traumatized? Because you said some of the teachers talked to those children. That entire school should have been in an assembly with you, Dr. Short, standing in front of them, and then training those teachers and having the social workers and counselors there to talk to those students that were affected, whether they shown themselves to be affected by that or not. And then my last thing, two last things. One, will the new building safety protocol include specific language that says no adults, visitors, or volunteers to that building should be utilizing student bathrooms during regular school hours, especially elementary school, right? That should be in your policy already. And lastly, I wanted to know, are you a ALICE certified school or just using ALICE protocol? Because a certified school will have the ALICE representatives come in and train. And your A in ALICE stands for alert. At the very least, you should have alerted the school, because although you as an educator saw him as not a threat, he had a box cutter. He could have had a gun. So my question is, why wasn't the school put on lockdown to protect everyone? My 8th grade son knows about the ALICE drill, not from Gateway, but from Pittsburgh Public. So I would rather trust my son in his training of ALICE to know what to do in that event that he heard that the school was on lockdown. That's why we say the A in ALICE is to actively alert you that somebody is in the building that is a threat. If he has a red shirt on, we say that so that my son knows where's the nearest exit in case I hear a gunshot and they say that the intruder's in the library and I'm near the cafeteria, I have an opportunity to escape. Learn from the school shootings of what happened. You alert because you give your trained teachers and kids the opportunity to make life-saving decisions. Stop being arrogant, Gateway. This is why our district is where it is right now.
Thank you, ma'am. Who is next? The gentleman over here. Yes, ma'am.
I am not a parent or of anyone.
Excuse
I
me.
am a
Could
student.
you say your name, please?
My name is Katie Toohill and I'm a student at Gateway. I never went to any of the Gateway schools besides this high school, but I do teach in a preschool education and with elementary school kids. And I have been sitting here listening to these parents. And I've also been sitting here observing most of your faces who are also coming off as arrogant, which I don't think any of these parents deserve. If I was that little girl who got violated in a bathroom, I would be absolutely pissed with you, which I am. And I'm not even that little girl. That little girl did not need her body by being seen by some man who you let in. And I understood that you were on lockdown and you went into a lockdown, but only the office. The office has maybe like what, a secretary, a principal or two, whatever, but not those students. I would want to be safe if in a lockdown, but you locked down only one part of that school. And then you compared a box cutter to a 10-inch knife. It does not matter how long that knife or the blade should be. It's a blade in a school with what, 10-year-olds? 7 years younger than me? You really think that's okay to compare a size of a blade? It does not matter. It could have been a gun. You did not check that man. You didn't send him through metal detectors like what we have here at Gateway High School. There should be metal detectors at least. There should be ID badges. It does not matter. You did not check that man. He could have had anything on him and you guys still let him go. And if that secretary was there for a while, then she should know the protocol to not let just random strangers into a building with little kids. It doesn't matter. And these parents are up here crying and these kids are coming home scared, can barely sleep, don't want to get up to go to school. These kids are young. They should be excited to go to school, not being terrified to know if they can go to the bathroom or not. And you're telling me that in that whole 40 minutes, one child was in a bathroom? Like, if I went to the bathroom in a 40-minute class, there would probably be like 5 different people in one bathroom. You're telling me if a child was out of a classroom for 40 minutes, a teacher wouldn't say, hey, can someone go check on this student for me? There isn't any backup, like, hey, I'll go check on the student, see if they're okay, if they're not in my classroom. So they're not keeping an eye on these kids. And if a student says that like they would open the door and confront, shouldn't you be teaching that that is the last option? The last option is to run away, find help, which that young girl did, which bless her heart. And you are just over here, like kind of ignoring these parents, didn't even answer one man's question. You just blew it off. That's not fair to anyone. I'm only 17 and I treat these people with more respect than you have.
Sir.
Hello, my name's Shane Keene. My daughter's in 4th grade there, and I've had a kid in Ramsey every year since 2013. First off, I wanted to thank the Monroeville Police Department for the good job they did and how quick they got there. I do have a couple questions. First is, where was he roaming around besides just in the bathroom? Because there's 29 minutes missing of what he was doing there. I don't know if someone can answer that question first, if yous are legally allowed or not.
It's still an ongoing
Okay,
investigation.
second question I have is, since I guess Mr. Rossi was the first one into the bathroom there to get the individual out, did you hear him flush a toilet or anything? I mean, was anything checked to see if anything got flushed into the plumbing? That would be my next question, to see if there was any kind of burner phones, anything like that guy could have had that he sent down there. That would be my next question. Secondly was 3:28, I guess, is when he was in there. What time were the teachers notified? Does anyone know what time the teachers were notified? If the police were there 3:28, what time were the teachers notified at the school? Would be my next question I'd like answered. If anyone knows that one, well, the intruder was in there, and then supposedly he detained them. So did you check him for the box cutter? So, I mean, we don't know anything with that, either. I'd like to know, I mean, I'm the 6th generation in Monroeville. I love this area. I hate seeing how just seems like it just keeps going downhill. I'd like to see Gateway get back to what it once was. It's a shame that we all got left down, but the only thing we do is come back as a community and make us better. But I would like some of my questions answered though, and why weren't they
I can answer
followed
some of that if you
how
like.
they should have been?
Certainly good questions. The Monroeville Police Department entered it into its computer-aided dispatch system at 15:29 and 38 seconds. So that means 15:29 is at 3:29, almost 3:30 is
Yeah.
when we were notified. That's what started the process. The call taking process takes anywhere. In this case, it took over 3 minutes, but they were dispatched before the call taking process was over. The
Yeah, but
normal call taking process is 90 seconds or so.
So thank you. And that's, it's just so everybody knows, that's what times our kids all leave to get on
That's correct.
buses. So our kids are up there with an individual sitting back there that we don't even know he has any kind of weapon.
I can
And
tell you that
dismissal is happening and they're just sent out through there. Like, I've been in that school 9 million times. I went to that school myself. Like, at least they put doors on different things. That's one. But my real big question about this all is that park in the back is owned by Monroeville. It's not even shut down during the day, that this guy's father says every day he rides his bike up around there. So what, is there any way we can do anything about getting the park shut down to residents during school hours?
So that I can't answer.
What's that?
That I can't answer. And talking to parents last week, that same point was made to me. And of course, when that school was built, the notion of students and park visitors mingling wasn't an issue. So we took a look behind the building, and clearly there's plenty of room back there to fence in a designated playground, play area for Ramsey, and also have it fenced in a way that provides additional security for the back of the building. We'll be moving immediately to explore how to quickly do that and what it will cost.
All right. Now, all right, so we got that question answered. What about the one when the teachers were notified though? Still haven't heard an answer for that one yet.
Yeah, and I do not have that information.
Yeah, do you know what time the teachers were notified? That my kid was sitting up there in a class, that a guy could have just shot out through there and ran into a classroom? Yeah, okay.
Just, do you know when they were notified, Mr. Rossi?
So during dismissal, they were notified somehow. All right.
Thank you, sir.
That was all my questions. Thank you. Thank you, Monroeville Police. Thank you.
Right there, young lady, right? Yes, yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Melissa Schmidt. I have a kindergartner at Ramsey. My daughter actually attends the after-school program at the Y, which is when I first became aware of this incident. As soon as I walked in to pick her up, the teacher pulled me aside to let me know some version of events that they had been told. I believe there's a story floating around that he may have said he was a bus driver or something to that effect. But what they also told me is that the Y program evacuated my daughter from the school. So my concern is that an after-school program where she runs around and plays for an hour until I'm done work. I'm actually a supervisor for Child Protective Services in this county, so I'm very well acquainted with child abuse, child pornography, the effects that that can have and the dangers of people like that. So I'm wondering why the after-school program was more worried about my daughter's safety than her school. She loves school. My daughter was so scared after this happened because it filtered to the older kids in the after-school program who were saying there was someone in her school that's not supposed to be there. So my concern is, why do I now trust the Y more than I trust her school? I'm just wondering, it didn't seem to be much of a thought for them to take my daughter out of that situation. So is there going to be any thought to advancing your protocols in that specific realm? Because you could have taken all of those children out. There's ample room, ample space available around the school to have those children be safe until such time that he can be appropriately detained. I cannot fault Mr. Rossi. He did the best I believe he could. He's not trained. He's not a police officer. He's not a law enforcement agent, anything of that. In fact, many other things could have been done. Our children could have also been taken out of the school. That man made a great point. All of these children are milling around at dismissal. We have many walkers in this district. He could have easily gone past Mr. Rossi, walked out with a student. That whole time, I'm pretty sure his intent was to wait until dismissal to do something much worse than he did. So that's my concern. I would love to be able to trust my daughter's school again. She has loved it up until this point. I have loved it. I live on Ramsey. So we are very close. We are always there. So I'm hopeful that it will be better in the future. I appreciate Chief Cole. He's even called me about a stop sign. I understand Monroeville police are very involved in this community. My concern is not with them. My concern is with the school. So that's just my hope. And maybe we could consult with the Y about their procedures because they seem to be more tuned into child safety than we are right now, unfortunately.
Thank you. Yes,
So thank you.
Ma'am? Yeah, you had your hand up. I'm sorry, could you wait, you'll go next? I'm sorry, you were up, sorry.
Hi, Terry Williams. I have 2 graduates from Gateway and 1 8th grader. Dr. Short, excuse me, I think you're amazing. It's unfortunate that we're in this position.
Thank you.
Board, I also think you guys do a great job. I think the question was not answered for me in regards to Alice. As an Alice instructor, my question is Gateway an Alice certified school? Meaning, do you guys go to the trainings, not just teach Alice with your students, but do you actually have staff that go to Alice training, and is Gateway an Alice certified school?
And I have Dr. Chakey here, who is
Yeah.
our safety and security designee for
Yeah.
the district, and he could provide information about Officer Serrano.
Are you an Alice certified school, sir? So I want to be clear about my question, sir. Are you an Alice certified school? Meaning, do you go on a portal? Do you update the required information? Or do you just follow Alice protocols? Because there's a big difference.
We do have 2 officers, Officer Saranovich and also Officer Key, who are certified Alice instructors. So we do. We are not an Alice certified school, but we have 2 Alice certified instructors.
So if I would like to please, Dr. Short, I would recommend that you all become an Alice certified school, because when you're an Alice certified school, your protocols are a little bit different and you learn differently. So your principals go through training that is a lot different. When you have officers that are Alice certified and they're not training your staff, you're not filling out the required documentation. It's just run a little differently. So if I can make a recommendation that you invest in your school becoming an Alice certified school.
Absolutely. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robin Biber. I'm a mom of 5 young kids. I have 2 kids at Ramsey. I have a 3rd grade son and a 1st grade daughter. And 2 things I wanted to say was, from the beginning, from all of this, the communications, the way this has been handled, I felt like this has been handled very coldly. This is very emotional for a lot of us, and I feel like the response from the district has been cold. And I'm also concerned about the kids. I know that you say that this really only affected 2 kids in the bathroom, but there are 400 some kids in this building and they don't feel safe anymore. And I wanted to know, I know that there are social workers and a guidance counselor in the school, but is anything being done to address the kids collectively as a peer group? This has been traumatic for a lot of them, and it might not seem like a big deal that only 1 or 2 of them was in the bathroom when this happened, but their friends are talking about it. They're scared to go to the bathroom. I know particularly a lot of the girls are scared, and I just feel like I haven't heard that this is being addressed with our kids in the school. I don't know what's been told to them, by the teachers or the counselors. And I'm just wondering if there's any plans to address our children about what happened, because they deserve answers too.
Thank you.
I'm glad to answer your question really quickly, but before we start, I owe everybody in this room an apology. Part of what's happening is we're all very emotional. And in my letter on Friday, I had mentioned this, but I've got 6-year-old twins and a 3-year-old kid. And all I could think of when we showed up there and we found out that there was a guy there, that was my daughter in that bathroom. So as we're having these conversations, please don't feel like, I'm glad to help any way that we can. And so when I came up here earlier, you know, it's very challenging to separate the emotions from the facts that are going on. So to start off with that, again, I'd like to apologize. Secondly, this is a traumatic experience not only for our students, but our staff members as well. So like we'd indicated in our letter, not only do we have our guidance counselor and social worker who are stationed at Ramsey, but other guidance counselors that came throughout the district. And when we met, especially on Wednesday to debrief with the staff, we met with them in the morning and in the afternoon to talk about this very specific thing. How do we help talk to kids? Because quite frankly, our families deserve that type of support. And so specific to the teachers, we have trauma counseling and ways that we can conversate with them. But of course, that has to be age appropriate. We would have these conversations differently between a kindergarten student who may not even necessarily know what happened and what we do with our 4th graders. And so just from my perspective in 4th grade, we went around that first morning and talked to them and tried to be as honest as we could, answering their questions, again, appropriate to their age and what we could share. But the continued mantra, which is important that we want our kids to feel, is that we love you and that we'll do anything to make sure that we can keep you safe. I appreciate that there's different perspectives in the audience, but it's important that our kids understand and feel that. And I'll be straight with you. I mean, a couple of us really did get upset while we were having those conversations, but I think it's important that kids see that we're reacting to this stuff too, and that we care and love about our kids. So, you know, I hope hopefully that can address that for you. And that was part of the reason why I thought it was so important when I sent my letter out on Friday to provide resources for families to be able to have these conversations, because I don't know how to say this to my kids if that was going to happen in our school. And of course, they watch the news, and although they're little, we still want to try to have those conversations with them. So from our perspective as a staff, we love your kids. And we really do want to try to continue to have those. And so in addition to the in-person conversations that the teachers had with the kids, as they identify that they need things, and that wasn't just on Wednesday, but you know, at some time, maybe in the middle of gym class or when they will have to go to the bathroom, if they have these things that they need help with, they know that, and the teachers have reiterated that they can come down to the office and talk to a person who knows the right questions to ask and can give them the type of strategies that would be able to be helpful. So hopefully that was able to take care of your question. Thank you. There was just there.
Is that more of the criminal investigation where a half hour with a suspect considered, wouldn't that be more someone with an accomplice as opposed to not authorized individual?
Again, I can just tell you from.
Like you suggested, it didn't take the half hour without 3 hours. Is that the school system doing again, or is that you?
I don't have an answer. I don't know what took place there, but I would like to say this. Ma'am, is it Ms. Woods? I've written down a bunch of names. Dr. Woods, I'm sorry. I've been thinking about what you said. And in the few days after the event, I was at Ramsey talking to parents. And the parents who spoke to me, I think would tell you, my face, the faces of these folks look differently when they were in the crowd talking to the people. You are absolutely right. I don't know precisely how to do this, you know, to convey both the regret, you know, my personal feeling of failure, and answer the questions and also represent the district. I'm honestly at a loss for how to do that better. You know, you know what? Yep. I'm acknowledging that right now. I'm saying you're absolutely right. And this district had a PR person once, and it was considered to be a luxury that, wasn't worth affording. I'm simply saying for myself, I agree. I've not led this well, and I've not allowed us to express the human part of, being both regretful, knowing that we deserve what we're hearing, but also wanting to know that we're going forward in a productive way with a staff that kind of knows we're on their side too. So we're trying to balance a whole bunch of elements, and I'm not doing it well. So.
And I appreciate that. My only other consideration is this. You are now a diverse board. I expect to hear more from that diverse board on things that affect those people that you represent. But also, I really think you guys and women have to start communicating the next step. Don't make this just a meeting, right? Come back with communication.
Yes, ma'am.
Here are the notes we took. Here are the next steps. Here's the policy that was taken. Thank you for reminding us that adults shouldn't be consensual. That's how we gain the trust of the community, that we see the feedback and actionable next steps.
Thank you, ma'am.
One other thing, something else that she said about family. I used to sub a Gateway School District. You go to the mic so everyone can hear, please.
John, we
I
can,
used to sub a Gateway School District for a little bit of time.
you're good.
She said that there are many people in the community that believe that this was racially, I just want to say, I have worked there, I've worked in the community, and I've never been able to get past that red box without showing up. Never.
Understood.
I've been to go see Dr. Short and has had to stand at the bar.
And honestly, if you look at that man, he looked like he was on drugs. Let's be clear. He looked suspect.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. I think there were a couple more hands up. Yes, right here. Yes, sir.
My name is Mark McConnell. I don't have a child at Ramsey Elementary. My daughter attends University Park. I would just like to say that the focus correctly has been on Ramsey here tonight. But what you all have failed to grasp is that this is a failure at the level of the entire school district. I had to pull my daughter aside and have a conversation with her that if there's a man in the bathroom, she is to run from that bathroom. I shouldn't have to say that to a 6-year-old girl. You should do better. If we don't have police officers in the school, the excuse is not that we're trying to hire. I'm trying to hire. I have 5, 6 employees that I need to fill in my position. You know what I'm doing? I'm finding ways to hire people, whether that's increased salary, increased benefits. It is a failure of all of you in leadership. And it's not how you lead during the good times, it's how you lead during the difficult times. If you want to earn our trust back, you will fix the communication. I get 15 automated phone calls a week telling me that there's a bus late that doesn't even correspond to my daughter. Where is the communication? I've heard multiple different comments tonight that still haven't clarified for us where the missing time has gone, what was actually done. All I can tell you is that the little girl that notified the school is a hero in this situation and a victim. And if it was my little girl, I guarantee you, I would not let you sit back there and tell me that this is just something that happens, right? I get that every one of you feels badly about this. I feel badly about this. Show us that you're gonna do something to fix this. Earn our trust back, every one of you. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sir, yeah, you're way back there.
Good evening. My name is Norma Nolte. I live in University Park. I have grandchildren at University Park. And I want to thank you for holding this meeting and thank you, Chief Cole. I just want to say that this is something that affects all the children in the school district. And as this gentleman said, the focus has been on Ramsey, but please don't forget the other children in the other schools as well. And then I have a question, and that is, when will this be rebroadcast for those people who couldn't be here tonight?
We're filming it, YouTube. It'll be on tomorrow.
On
On our
YouTube?
website, yeah.
Okay,
YouTube
thank you
channel.
very much.
Thank you.
Sir?
Okay, I think, all the parents that.
Sir, your name, please?
Oh, my name's Jim Miller. My son is at Ramsey Elementary in first grade. I think all the parents did a really great job tonight expressing, our concerns and some of the remaining questions we have and our outrage about the entire situation. So I'm not going to spend any more time with that. I think I just have like some points I'd like to bring up and just a couple like quick questions. I think one of the things that is really important about this is, obviously I think everybody here is in agreement that this should have never happened. It didn't go the way it should have. There was a lot that went wrong here from all steps of it. So I think what the focus also needs to be, in addition to the ongoing investigation, in addition to doing the research, looking at the red box usage data, all of those kind of things. I think we need some immediate action. We need immediate teamwork from you guys with the, with the families. One of the big things that, I thought of was when you guys brought up the red box. I've been in education for, over 15 years. I do a lot of consultation at schools. I travel to a lot of different schools. I go in and I have always showed my ID. I've gone to Ramsey Elementary, gone inside about 3 different times to drop something off for my son that he forgot or pick something up from homework when he was sick. I have never once used my ID to get in there. Not once. I didn't even know they had one. And then I think what kind of disturbed me was the comment, and not to say that you shouldn't, yes, check the usage data, absolutely. But, I think what we need is, this is what we're doing tomorrow to remedy the red box problem. You've had tons of people in here tell you that the red box is used inconsistently. So that needs to be addressed, now. Yes, research the data,
Absolutely.
look at everything, find out stuff. So I think just some of the immediate things that I'd really like to ask for is, one is, and I'm sure you have to, update your procedures and all those kind of things as well. But one of the things that we really need is procedural fidelity checks. There needs to be a schedule for how often you're running them. Once you get, everything put together, there needs to be a schedule for how often you're running them. They have to be, checked by multiple people, not just one person in charge of checking them.
Excuse me, was that, you said procedural fidelity?
Yeah,
check?
procedural fidelity checks. So say,
Okay.
sorry, I gotta duck down here. So say that there's, X amount of steps to a procedure for checking in an adult or anybody coming into the building. There'd be a checklist with that. And, you would have scheduled times during training where you're training a new person to run the procedures at the door. So, they have the protocol, maybe you model it for them, then you train them on it, they run it, you do the checklist. And then continuing on that, you have scheduled times where you run, your ongoing procedural fidelity checklist to make sure that there isn't drift, because there's always drift. I know how it works. So you're making sure that they're running that well. And then also, not only do you have scheduled checks, but you also have unscheduled checks to make sure that just randomly, I'm checking to make sure the person at their job or the person at the door is doing their job, because clearly in this situation, it wasn't. So you need tools like that. You have to have them. The other thing, again, I understand everybody needs employees right now. I get it. But that doesn't mean that we're like, well, we'll just hope nothing bad happens until we get somebody hired. So maybe what we could look into, again, is looking at what resources could we pull to at least have a door monitor? You know, somebody again that has a checklist for this is the procedure, this is what we do. Maybe even a monitor to check the people who are supposed to monitor. And then the other person brought up, because one of my biggest concerns was the park and access to the school. You know, my son, when he's playing on the playground, he's just told me like different stories, like, oh, I climbed on the other side of the hill and I was hiding from my friends and stuff like that. And I was kind of, even at the time before all this happened, I was kind of thinking like, that's not really that safe, you know, because the park's right there. So looking at, is that something we can look into too, is for recess, seeing if we can get a monitor just to be out there in general, just to make sure that, you know, kids are safe. And because my son has special needs, he has a one-on-one, but I know for a fact that sometimes the one-on-one isn't with him, again, because of staffing issues. So that is one thing that I asked even prior to this, is that, you know, that during recess, that is one of the most important times, just because they're outside and have access to that. So those are two or whatever, three things that I'd really like. And once you get your protocols in place, if that's something that could be shared with the families, that would be great, because you could also, you know, with that procedural checklist, that could be something that's provided to the families. So we could also give you feedback to make sure it's being ran, because you just saw a room full of people who've had very different experiences coming into that school. Some people couldn't get in there to save their life, to drop off their kids' lunch, while other people can stroll right in. So it's very different. So obviously, and that's something, again, that review your data, come up with new policies, do all that thing, but have something ready for tomorrow. Not the best case scenario, but better than it is today or yesterday or when this happened. Those are, you know, the other thing too is like, just kind of, you know, sharing, we got in a big debate of should they would have locked down? Why didn't we go into lockdown? I think looking forward, making sure that if there's an intruder in the building, making sure we go into lockdown. That would make me feel a lot better. Because if my kid's door is locked, I'm okay with that. If my kid's door is not locked and there's someone unsafe in the building, I'm not okay with that. Then my last thing, I guess it doesn't really have too much to do with the actual like school, but it's just kind of a general question about the safety of the community. And, you know, with the police officers here that might be able to shed some light on that, because I just truly don't know. It's just a question, because we were kind of tossing around, you know, could this person get back into the community? And, you know, hopefully not, but the answer is potentially, right? And is there like, you know, just in general, is there a way that like when someone that's been charged with these kind of things, like is like released on bail, do they have limitations on where they can go? And if we, you know, if as a community member, if we happen to see them in some of those places where they're not, you know, where they have limitations and they shouldn't be there, or they shouldn't have access to those places.
We can have either the chief or our solicitor answer that question, because I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I mean,
So as we talked about earlier, I think that what the district will do is once we find out that he has been released, we'll issue a letter indicating he's not allowed on school property, all Gateway school property. So whatever school your children go to, it would be included. Beyond that, the families can go to court and ask for additional protections for the victims, but it's not, unfortunately, the school district, we're not considered as the district a victim. And so it would be out of the victim's families going and requesting that. And it's up to the judge. And again, this incident is awful, but you have to remember the person is innocent until proven guilty. And I don't condone anything that happened by any means. However, that person does have rights.
Yeah. So I guess my question would be, if, you know, they are released for whatever reason, they, you know, the school releases something that this person is not allowed on this property. Is that something, and, you know, I bring my son up here all the time, and just like the other parent mentioned that they were concerned that, you know, the person who was arrested, their father was saying he rides his bike up there all the time. And so like, is that something that you could we could potentially contact the police for, if we're, you know,
yes, so
if we see that person up at the school or something? And again, this is just, you know. I
By issuing
really
the-
want to know how to respond.
By issuing the letter indicating that he's not going to be able to come on school property, should he be found on school
Yeah.
property thereafter, it's an additional crime that then we would contact the police. He'd be hopefully charged again, things like that. So then we
Okay.
can prosecute for additional crimes.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. Did I see a hand right here from the PTO? And we got you, and someone else back there.
Hi there. My name's Nicole Larson. I have a fourth grader and a second grader at Ramsey. I'm also a member of the PTO. I am just asking for some additional information regarding the questions that we put together, but also speaking for myself. I'm very intrigued by the information that's been provided about ALICE certification, and a couple of our questions also address this. We have gone through 3 principals this year. We had our initial principal who left in, I believe, early September or mid-September. We had an interim principal approximately 1 month before Mr. Rossi joined us in October. The information that was provided stated that an ALICE drill was performed in September on the 21st. I did find one email communication that was just a calendar provided saying that we would run an ALICE drill. However, I was not able to identify any communication from the principal that occurred. There's some question as to whether that occurred based on what we hear from our children. I would like to know if there is some place that this information is validated, that these drills have occurred, and if that information is public to us as parents.
And we will verify that.
Thank you.
Get that information out.
I would appreciate that. Also, given that there has been a transition to a new principal, one of the questions addressed, the new onboarding of personnel, whether that be a principal, whether that be a teacher, whether that be any other staff member. Being that every building has its own caveats, and Ramsey, actually, one of the former principals pointed out all of these doors are actually an asset as to how quickly we can evacuate children from our building, although they are also points of entry. I am concerned that it has been 6 months since a new principal has arrived, and while he may have been trained by your trainees or trainers, that we have not had an ALICE drill where he has been able to experience that building and that school. And I think that we need an ALICE drill now, in the next month. We need an ALICE drill at that building so that not only our children can be reminded, because there's children that weren't in school all last year. And if this one in September did or didn't happen, some of these kids may have not had an ALICE drill, and some of them may have had several years without it. And again, I want Dr. Ross, or Mr. Rossi, I'm sorry, to experience that school and in that situation. And I think that's
Exactly.
appropriate.
And there are ALICE drills for all of our buildings planned in the spring, absolutely.
I think we need it.
And when I say spring, soon.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm not going to go into the red box. I've entered that school numerous times this year, never been checked. If there was racial profiling, I apologize to anyone who experienced that. That's horrible. But I can tell you that procedure was not followed. You can try to validate the red box against sign in, but I can tell you I did not sign in either.
Okay.
Most of the time I was coming after school. Maybe that's part of the laxity, but I take responsibility, as Christine mentioned, for myself and not following the procedure that should have been happening.
Thank you.
Even if after school. And then my second concern, as many people have iterated, was about the communications. And I understand the limitations of what information could be provided at certain times. My concern really, and actually I don't take credit for this, this was a post I found on social media that I thought really resonated with me. And we asked what the teachers were instructed to do with the children. Parents have expressed that they were not able to communicate these events to their children before the teachers did. I love my Ramsey teachers. I am personal friends with many of them. I completely trust that they did the best of their ability. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be having these conversations, but I believe parents deserve to have the conversation first.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Harris, and I am a parent of a first grader at Ramsey. And I have also been part of the district for the last 15 years, as I have one currently at the high school and one who has graduated. A couple of things that I just want to piggyback on that has been said numerous times. The mousetrap is not effective. In the last 2 years, last year being the cohort A, cohort B, I have picked up my daughter on several occasions between the 2 years, and I literally had the door open for me. I was never asked to scan my ID, nor was I asked to sign a paper stating that I took her out, which is an even bigger concern because to me, there's no documentation as to who removed my child from the school. Now, as to my relationship with the staff, because we have been there, the secretary was not there at the time, or the person we are speaking of was not there. At the time, my 2 older children were there. So I don't have a relationship with her. Now, at the time, she was escorted down because 2 were nurse dismissals and the nurse and I knew each other, but I never physically had to sign a document. So when parents are dismissing students and they just go in and take somebody's word for it and take your student out of the building, that's a red flag. That's a red flag to me. That's a red flag to my family, as to my mother's even picked her up and she's never had to sign anything. That's an issue. So when you talk about building safety protocols, I'm hoping and asking and requesting, pleading with you as a district, get the community involved, get parents involved, get members of our community who have tight safety protocols within their businesses and how they run things. Ask them to be a part, to offer their input as to what we can do to make our schools safer for our children so that we don't have another occurrence as the one that just occurred last week. Another thing that I have, and it's a concern, is looking at the time frame of things. And I know that this has been brought up time and time again. At 6:35 p.m., my gateway alert went off on my phone that there was a message received from Ramsey. That was the first communication I heard of that day's events. So you start at 2:19 p.m. and go to 6:35 p.m. My first grader has come home, gotten off the bus, done her homework, done everything else. And approximately 4 hours later, since the beginning of the incident, was the first time the parents were alerted with some communication from the district. Shame on the district. That blast of some sort, like the gentleman said earlier, we get blasts all the time. There should have been some sort of blast that went out alerting there was a situation that was under control. Students are loaded on the bus, they are being sent home, but there should have been something said, something letting the families know. For those kids who got off the bus and knew there was something up in the building, for those older students, it should have been made known. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I couldn't agree more. Oh, hold on one second. Sir with the sunglasses, you want to come down while this gentleman asks a quick question?
Yeah,
Sir?
My name's Kevin White. I got a daughter that's in Ramsey. My son's in 7th grade. I coached sports for Gateway. I volunteered, PTO, all that stuff. Never, ever thought about any of this until just now. Is there a code system or something that you guys, I mean, if there's an active shooter in the school, how do you lock the school down? How do the teachers know to close their doors? With that situation, he was in the bathroom. You took him out of the bathroom, down the hall to another room. Why just lock him in the bathroom? Put out a code system like code black. It's just something over the loudspeaker system. So all the teachers know what to do. Like
So-
you do in a hospital, there's a fire. If there's a fire, go fire alarm. Everybody knows what it is. There should be a code system through the intercom or something. With cameras, you're not supposed to ever use those. So I think I think it's in previously, you're supposed to say.
Exact language. Yep, you're right, yeah.
Again, I mean, the thing is, it's, okay, if that's without, doesn't think it's like with anything. I mean, that's what I have.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Cheryl?
You had one more question, sir?
Good, Cheryl.
Cheryl, give us- Cheryl.
Cheryl Boyce, as a grandparent in this district, you're bringing the state police in, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so all the parents have to understand this. The state police are part of an organization called American Society of Industrial Security. The FBI, the CIA, the state police all belong to it. I'm assuming, even though this problem originated in Ramsey, since you have them here, you're going to walk through every building and see what they're going to say to you, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so what they're going to do is they're going to look at your hardware, you're going to look at your protocols, they're going to tell you everything that you're doing and not doing. And I know there are going to be things after this report comes out, and they're going to tell you absolutely everything. I don't know when they're coming. Do you have a time frame with the state police yet?
I've had one meeting already, and I have another meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay, so it should be soon. Because all the things we're talking about here, they're going to look at that.
Yep.
They are trained to do that kind of thing. I know when this is all said and done, that you're not going to be able to tell us absolutely everything they tell you. For security reasons, you cannot do that. However, when you get general information from them and let the parents know that they indeed did a walkthrough and every single building was observed, and you now know things that have to be improved, they may look at you and say your camera systems are all obsolete. You need all new security cameras, because your cameras in that building should be part of what the police are looking at, because that'll show you where he was in the building and what time, because there's a timestamp on the camera. I'm married to a security person. So basically, those are the kind of things we need to know. And the last thing I'm going to say, and I've said this 999 times to this school board, we need a superintendent's roundtable. We used to have them. I sat on it. It's an opportunity for you to discuss with representatives from all of the buildings all of these issues, so that we don't have 6 seconds at a school board meeting to try to communicate. And then, using Facebook more productively, you post that information to a Facebook page labeled Roundtable, so that the parents will all know exactly what you're doing. And guys, we've been messing with this for a while. We've been talking about it. And I know COVID delayed us for the Roundtable because you couldn't have people together in a group. But that was then, and this is now. And this may be March, but I think we need to do this like yesterday.
And I've committed to those moving forward. So thank you for that, and we will do so.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, you had one more question?
Yeah. So just to piggyback off what Ms. Boyce said, I've been through 3 of those state police evaluations. We have several more buildings to go through. They're very, very good and informative, because they see things through a completely different lens than anybody in this room except maybe the chief. I would take notes. I would take it seriously. I would try to accomplish everything that you can. Obviously, some of the things are budgetary restrictions, but it is a long process. They are extremely swamped. They have to do it while kids are in school, so they take a pause over the summer. But I agree, it's very informative. My question was, who do the SROs report to directly?
The SROs report directly to either the building principal, where they're assigned. We do have a supervisor, which is a former state police officer, Brian Key, and then ultimately to Dr. Chakey, the assistant superintendent, then my office.
So you do have a supervisor of the SROs?
That is correct.
And is that supervisor Alice certified? Okay.
Yes.
Because I heard a lot about Alice certification. And do all of the teachers or staff, not just teachers, is all of the staff required to do the online training, Alice training, as well as the Alice physical part of it training?
We do tabletop trainings, Dr. Chakey.
We haven't utilized online training because we have 2 instructors here, so they will utilize tabletop discussions plus complete walkthroughs.
Because Alice certification as an organization is very simple. You need to have an Alice certified instructor in the district, which it sounds like we have. The entire staff of Gateway needs to be on the online instruction, and then they need to partake in the Alice training, aspect of it, where you have an active shooter and such. It's very simple to become certified, but we can't look at this as it's just a pain in the butt to try to get everybody to do it, because I think it's extremely important that our staff goes through this training.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hold on. Anyone else want to? back here. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, yes.
My name is Marcy Belchick. My daughter is in second grade at Ramsey. And I've heard a lot of parents and people discussing this red box and the inconsistency with gaining access to the school through the red box. I personally have never, ever, ever been able to get into that school without using the red box. Every time I've been, I've had to use the red box every single time. And the majority of the times whenever I'm coming to the school to bring something that my daughter forgot or, get something into her hands, I've received extreme resistance. Now, I'm a parent. She's, my daughter, she's been there now for 3 years. And I guess I'm not understanding how it is that someone like me has such great difficulty with getting something to my daughter at the school, yet someone who is this predator, this psychotic-looking person, is let in. How does that happen? The other thing that I want to know, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but it's a question that I have, and it's, this man, there was a letter that was sent out, and I don't recall it. I think it was from you, Dr. Short. One of the statements in the letter said that the man entered Ramsey under false pretenses. What was the false pretense? What was the lie that this man, or lies that he told in order to get access to the building? Because I find it very hard to believe that, what did he say? He was a parent? Did he say that he had to drop something off for his kid? How did he get in? How? What are the false pretenses?
He informed the employee that he had used the restroom.
Okay, so there you have it. I mean, I've watched another mom ask to come into the building to use the restroom, and she was turned away, very vehemently turned away.
And that's
So again,
procedures.
I just
Yep.
want to state my thoughts here, because I feel like if I don't say it, then maybe people won't know that this is, the kind of thing that I've experienced. And I want to know, why is someone like this man allowed access to a place where my daughter's supposed to be kept safe? Yet I can't even get in there, and I'm her parent.
Thank you.
Ma'am, if I may, there's simply no good answer for why the employee let this person in. The employee doesn't have a good explanation. The employee has no, I knew him, I recognized him. It was a complete and utter breakdown. As for the inconsistencies in letting people into the building or not using the red box, clearly we're hearing that our standards are being implied randomly at least, discriminately at worst, and we can't do anything except try to address that tomorrow and the day after and the day after.
I understand.
I wish I had some brilliant answer for, how this specific failure occurred beyond us not having a security guard there for another set of eyes and another set of reasoning to say, "Ooh, this is a bad idea."
Yeah.
It's a week later, I still can't wrap my mind around the idea that someone made this decision.
I can't wrap my mind around it either, and I know that a lot of other parents feel that same way because they've experienced the same thing that I have with not being able to get into that school no matter what. And so, I know for myself, I started to question, is she related to this guy somehow?
My understanding is
some kind
there's-
of tie?
My understanding is there's no connection at all. That would make more sense.
Isn't that to be investigated?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Isn't that to be investigated?
The
Is that
relationship?
part of the investigation?
Oh, I don't know. I assume it's ongoing. No one's told me to this point anything except the person was in the neighborhood.
I would imagine that should be investigated,
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Absolutely.
so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Dorchek, do you have, I'm sorry, it's Dorchek, right? Do you have something else? Okay. The other folks who would want to speak, could you just come and like sit up? Could you come and sit up here close just so we don't lose track of you?
Police Chief, thank you for everything that you do. I respect you. Your organization did nothing wrong. I didn't want to come up here and have to say this, but this is the only way that I think I'm going to get attention for it. Principal Rossi, did he leave? He just walked out. I'd like to address Principal Rossi if I can.
You might just go into the manager.
Yes.
Just switch order and then he'll be back in a second.
Sure.
I believe this gentleman.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir, yes.
Hello, my name is Sergey Ryshkov. I'm father of two children of Ramsey School. I have a daughter and I have a boy. My English may be gonna be a little limited. I come 20 years ago to United States from Ukraine. I'm pretty sure you hear about this country on the radio.
Yes, sir, we have.
First thing I want to say thank you to Police Chief and Police of Monroeville for your job, for you come. Even like you said, you have a shortage. America have a difficult time. America have shortages. And I want to say thank you to police to protect and serve our school and our child.
Thank you.
I want to say advice to staff and administration of Ramsey School. All of our parents, include me, we have child and we send them to school and we want to believe they have a safe spot there and we want to come back our child smiley, happy, and feel they safe, they have educated and they protected. When I come 20 years ago to United States, I saw on a police card, there was like a sticker, it was saying, protect and serve. So I just want to say to administration and staff, like you said, you guys working on a thing to get a police. I know it's a difficult time. America is very different 20 years ago when I come here and now in present time. Its economy is different, everything is different, and we have to be united. I would like to say, please be united, be more cooperative in the things because we give our kids to school, and this is like the innocent. The kids is innocent, and this is they priceless to us. And we send our kids every day to school, and we want to see our kids to be safe, educated, and protect and serve. Please, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Andrew Richmond. My children had attended Ramsey, no currently, but last year they were. It's a complete disgrace that for 2 years this red box has not been enforced. How many of you knew that it wasn't being enforced? That's why this guy got in. It looks like people just walk in randomly. I can tell you this, my wife has shown up. She's treated like a member of Al-Qaeda when she shows up to go and give a school lunchbox to my kid. Okay, we get the 3rd degree of security. Meanwhile, people like this guy walk in with a box cutter. Some of you absolutely know these red boxes were not in operation. It looks like there's favoritism. Somehow people just walk right in. So I'd like to know, how come it goes 2 years, and apparently the PTO can walk in whenever they want, and it's apparently an open secret, because they told me 2 years of this is going on. I'd like to know how many of you knew that these red boxes aren't being used for at least 2 years. We couldn't even go to a kid's Halloween parade her last year at Ramsey because there's too much of a security risk. Meanwhile, people apparently, certain people can walk right in. Other people, forget it. You get checked at the door and they look at you like you're a criminal. It's a disgrace. It really is a disgrace.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sir?
Mr. Rossi, my kids love you. I have a 3rd grader and I have a 1st grader. My children respect you. I sat in the audience tonight and I watched you smirk during some of the conversations that were being had. I watched the school board smirk at some of the conversations. I know you don't want to hear it, and I'm going to be extremely respectful to you, sir, but I'm not going to have a chance to address you again. The fact that you stood up to tell everybody in this room that I'm the man that saved your kids is the most arrogant thing I have heard an individual say. See, you're smirking right now, and I feel disrespected by you. You know, I trust. Could you please meet me in the eyes, sir, so we can talk? I don't need a response. The fact that you have such an overinflated sense of yourself, that you take 100%, that you honestly think that you are the only savior, and the fact that you, go ahead. I'm not asking you, I don't need an apology. I don't need an apology. I thought highly of you. I don't trust you any longer. I know that that probably means nothing to you, and that's okay. But I needed to get off my chest that I have kids that are under your watch for probably longer than I see them every day. And for you to sit here this evening and smirk and look bored and roll your eyes at some of the parents, I see you, I'm sitting behind you, is absolutely unnecessary and uncalled for. My respect for you, not knowing you, from what my children tell me, and they respect you, my respect is gone, and I don't think it can be earned back. So whether it means anything to you, I honestly am so deeply offended by how you addressed the crowd here this evening. And I would appreciate, I hope that when there's issues in school, there's not as much smirking or eye rolling or looking bored with our children as there was here tonight. Thank you to all of the parents who had the courage to come and speak to these people. I'm going home to my children.
Do we have? One more. There's one here too. Ma'am, there's two. Ma'am, would you sit right over here just so you can go next?
Hi, Jeanette Beagle. I don't have kids in Ramsey. I have one at UP, two at Mosside. I sent an email specifically to you, Mr. Bova, and thank you for the reply. I want the community to know, because I've heard from some of these school board members that we are all very unhappy, uncomfortable with what went on. To think that they don't care, they do. They do. Mr. Bova, it weighs very heavily on him. Mrs. Cerrucci, I got a response from you. Mrs. Delaney, I got a response from you. I don't always agree with any of these guys at any one time. I don't always agree with how they vote on subjects, but I can tell you they truly do care. They care wholeheartedly for our kids. I want to thank the board for sitting here. This isn't easy. This isn't easy to sit and watch. This isn't easy to play the what if game and go down the what if street on what if this would have happened, what if that would have happened, but that's where we as parents are. And I'm sure every one of you have done that also. We need to look at what we've done. Hindsight is 20/20. We can always learn from what has happened, but we will do better. We will promise to this board that we're going to hold them accountable, that we're going to ask, why are we not having qualified applicants come? What do we need to do? How can we help them help us? Because we trust this district with the most precious people in our lives. And I have to absolutely believe without a shadow of a doubt that tomorrow morning is a new day. And I want to thank you all for doing this, for taking this heat, for listening to us, because we will do better. Thank you.
Jeanette.
Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Katie Chismar, and I have a kindergartner at Ramsey. I'm just emotional and I apologize. But I actually feel like I failed my daughter when I put her on the bus that morning because I have trust in the school district and I actually feel like I failed. And every day since this.
Ma'am, obviously you didn't.
I
fail
know,
anyway. We
not
failed.
personally, but this is
Dr.
a struggle.
Woods
Us
is
parents, we
right.
make
We did.
decisions for our kids. So it's hard to be able to move forward. Like I'm still actually hung up on the incident. Like I'm glad that we've had discussions about what's going to happen in the future, but I still think there's a lot of inconsistencies about the incident itself, especially that 30-minute time lapse. I think that I just want to make sure, I know that a lot of it is still under investigation, but I just want to make sure that every victim was identified. Are we even certain that that is the case? Because there's a lot of young children. And I asked my daughter, did you go to the bathroom at that time? She says no, but she's 5. So I need to make sure that we know that everybody that was involved in this and who was within feet of this man has been notified. Could we at least establish that part of it?
Still under investigation.
It's still, yes, but everybody that's been identified is going into that restroom.
I cannot answer that.
Okay, so we're really
And
not.
some of it
even-
is, as I said, this is what we know now.
Okay.
Tomorrow, we may know something different.
So there might be a chance that there's actually even more to this incident.
I can't say either way. I mean, yeah, it's possible, but it's also possible that it's not. There isn't any. So I really don't know.
Okay.
I
And
mean,
then-
as soon as I can give that information.
Right.
And we will give it out. It's not like it's secret information, but it's, as the investigation goes, some of the things that we're trying to find out, we don't want to disclose how we're finding them out.
Right, okay, okay. And number 2, just a concern that I have that I'm not sure you're aware of or not, is that this perpetrator lives near the school. I mean, I think his address was publicized. And the way that street where he lives on wraps down, there is a direct connection through the woods to the school too. So I just kind of wanted to make you aware of that. I'm not sure if that area it was looked into too, but it's not as, I don't know where he came in, but just so you know, where his street is, there's a walkway to that school. It comes up like behind, like
We're
by the
familiar with the
baseball.
power lines and everything at Old
Yeah,
Farm.
that's where I was.
That was
gonna
all
go,
been looked at.
Power lines back there.
Yeah,
power lines,
so
yeah.
I just wasn't sure if that was looked into.
We
or
are
not.
familiar with
Yes.
that, and those areas were looked at. That's correct.
Okay, all right.
I walked
thank
that
you.
area as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Why don't you hold the time thought, ma'am? You're already in the move. Why don't you come on up while Chief and Dr. Short just want to review this timeline one more time before we wrap up this thing. Yes, ma'am. Your name?
My name is Lauren Serbach. My daughter is in 3rd grade here at the elementary school. And I'm just having a hard time understanding, okay, he made it through past the red box into the reception area. How did he get from there to the kindergartner's bathroom without anybody stopping him?
And at that point, the employee escorted that individual to, if you're familiar with that hallway, to the corner, walked back to the front entrance, waiting for the individual to
Okay,
finish.
and didn't think, it's been about a half hour, maybe I should check on him.
Within
like-
a few minutes, the employee went back, looked, and assumed the individual was still in the men's restroom, came back to the front doors. At that point in time, another employee was present, and then that employee checked the men's restroom.
We need better clarification on this timeline, because if they're entering the school at, what was it, 2:18? I mean, the letters are both conflicting on what we received. So he entered at 2:18 and police were called at 3:29. What happened during that time? I mean, I know of at least 2 girls that reported this. So I asked my daughter if she went to the bathroom that time, and she said yes. And I asked her which bathroom, and then I had to email to find out which bathroom this happened in. There's no answers, like nobody can explain this timeline at all. What happened?
Again, do you want to just, I think that the timeline has been laid out. Maybe we're not laying it out clearly.
No, you're not. I think we can all say that you're not, right?
So you want to try it again? I don't know how else to do it.
2:18 to 3:28. What happened during that time? I mean,
Yeah, and again, there's an investigation ongoing. The Monroeville Police do have access to the cameras.
okay, and how old do the cameras go back? Because if this individual was let in so casually and he rides his bike around there, who's to say he has not entered that school before?
Mhm.
And maybe that's why he was let in this time.
Well, what we know is he was let in this time.
Right.
And
So are we looking at cameras before? Are the tapes recorded and saved?
They are saved for a period of time, yes.
Oh, boy.
Thank you.
Ma'am, right here. Get this.
Hi, my name is Tiana Willoughby, and I have a 3rd grader that attends Ramsey, also a kindergartner. And I'm also a Gateway graduate of 2009. I just have a quick question I'm a little confused about. So the secretary, is she going to be under any type of investigation?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear that
Is the employee going to be under an investigation
Yes.
relative to their behavior?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And one more thing. So I understand that everybody here tonight is frustrated, and I'm not going to sit here and voice my opinion anymore with that. I feel like we need to place blame where blame needs to be placed with the secretary, because at the end of the day, it was her fault. Like, she was the one that let this man in. Mr. Rossi, I feel as though you honestly done the best that you can. And again, I understand everybody's frustration with the situation, but I am happy that at least somebody was there to be able to detain this man until police was able to come. And I want to thank you guys for having this meeting with us tonight. And again, I understand that everybody's frustrated, but I feel like we have to look at all ends of the situation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, were you getting ready to speak? Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Jalen Morris. I would like to thank everybody for coming up here today and speaking and letting everybody know that how frustrated they are. If we don't take anything tonight, then let's take this, that we all have to forgive each other. Everything is going to happen. There's a lot of bad things that's going on in this world. And what happened today was no excuse whatsoever. But at the end of the day, we all have to forgive each other and know that if we don't work together, nothing is going to change at all. If we do not work together, if we do not speak to each other, if we can whisper over here, then we can answer everybody's questions. Honestly, that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll speak quick. Mr. Ross is still the current principal at the school, correct? So after a dereliction of duty in which he failed to lock down our children and he waited half an hour to call 911, why is he still in a position where he can continue to put our children in danger in the future? And how do I know his decision-making skills tomorrow are better than they were Tuesday?
Well, to answer your first question, yes, he is still the principal. He will be the principal until this investigation suggests that he shouldn't be. So far, we've heard from Chief Cole, who believes that the principal behaved in a way that was what he believed to be in the best interests of the students. And when the administration and the chief come to us, the board, and say, we've reviewed this along with the state police, and we have definite questions about what Mr. Rossi did, we will then respond to that input. That's our job.
So from a legal standpoint, if the board decides to do any type of disciplinary action, he has privacy rights. And so there will be certain things that you may learn, whether he's terminated, suspended, or we continue to retain and you'll know that he's still a principal. But ultimately, his personnel file is his privacy, and we are not able to disseminate that information unless he consents. A change, any employee and a change of status, you all will know, and it's board approved.
Do we have anyone else? No. I would like to thank everyone sincerely, honestly, for coming out and sharing your thoughts and your concerns and your ideas. We're going to absorb these as quickly as possible. The mechanical things that we can put into place, we will do as quickly as possible. The process of reviewing all of our buildings will be ongoing and rapid. The process of healing this trust, unfortunately, is going to take exactly as long as it takes. So one thing I've heard tonight is a number of specific complaints about things that were taking place in the entry area of the school that I'd certainly never heard before. The other word that I've written down about 20 times from you folks is communication. So we're going to do everything we can to figure out the best way to communicate in both good times and bad. I would like you also to think about communicating with us. And if you attempt to communicate with us and you find resistance or reluctance, you have to let us know, because it doesn't work without this reciprocal two-way thing. So Dr. Short, anything else?
No, it's affected everyone. And I mean that sincerely. The healing phase will be difficult. We recognize that. And we will have all the resources in place. They will be communicated with our families. And whatever we need to do as a district to ensure the safety, well-being, welfare of individuals, we'll move forward with doing that. I thank everyone for their voice tonight, because it's important. And I can assure you that we will do a better job. I thank Chief Cole for his participation.
Thank you.
The Monroeville Police as well. Thank you. And that's all I have.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everybody. And